and salutations! My name's Ollie, and here's your loaf of daily bread. Today's loaf comes to us by way of Isaac Asimov, and he says the following. The basic trouble is that people think that right and wrong are absolute. That everything that isn't perfectly and completely right is totally and equally wrong. The dualism is a disease of the mind when it's left unchecked. That's what I think. When you forget that dualism is a convention, a way of organizing this experience that you're having into manageable pieces of data, when you forget that and you start to believe in the conventions, well, you start to be like this person Isaac Asimov is describing. Someone who thinks that the world is made up of absolutes, black and white, right and wrong, up and down. These are merely conventions, my friends, and they are only convenient when we remember that. The world of absolutes is a myth, an oversimplification. Instead of black and white, what I have found in my explorations is a universe of infinite and subtle shades of gray. I've yet to find a clear demarcation between this and that. All of these things just run together, my friends, and when we open our eyes and clear our mind, it becomes evident. But unfortunately, many of us are, as Asimov describes it, we're infected with this belief in absolutes, dualism, this and that. You're either with us or against us. You're either right or wrong. You're either a good person or a bad person. Well, I hate to break it to you, my friends. There's a little bit of everything in everything. There's a little bit of nothing in stuff. And there's a little bit of stuff in nothing as well. This is the non-dualistic approach, a more accurate experience and perception of the universe. You know that solid matter is made up of empty space, and you know that all matter exists in space. And in fact, it's mostly space out there, despite the trillions and trillions and trillions of galaxies and innumerable stars. It's mostly just emptiness. Wrap your head around that. In order to have stuff, you have to have emptiness. In order to have emptiness, you have to have stuff. But there are some people out there who hear things like this and they just scoff. They roll their eyes. They point to a car and they say, "There's a car right there. What do you mean there's no such thing as a car?" I'm not saying there's no such thing as a car. I'm saying the idea that there is a standalone machine called a car that exists in a vacuum, disconnected from everything else around it, doesn't exist. The car is only possible because of the elements that were used to form it, and the minds that devised clever ways of putting it all together. There's a person driving the car. There's a road upon which the car is driving. So you see, the car doesn't exist in isolation and is not a separate, standalone thing. And if you want to get even more neurotic about it, you could even say that a car doesn't exist. It's 4 tires and a frame and a bumper. You could start listing all the different parts that make up the car and say, see, there's no car. Car is just a word we use to describe this conglomeration of parts. So you see, language and convention, these are slippery things. They're useful, but as soon as you start to poke and prod a little too much, the whole house of cards comes crumbling down. And you realize that all the words and all the ideas that we use are absolutely and totally unreal. They are illusions. They are inventions, abstract, and they have no real existence in the embodied experience of this universe that each of us is having. When you can wrap your head around that, things stop affecting you nearly as much as they used to. You stop placing so much importance on the symbols that our culture revolves around. Symbols for wealth, symbols for success. These things are just red herrings and distractions. There's no such thing as success. It's not an absolute. You can be very successful financially and be a total failure at everything else. So just like Isaac Asimov says, this is the trouble. People assume that because you're successful at one thing, you're successful at everything, and that's just not the case. So just keep that in mind, my friends. Remember, It's not absolute. It's subtle shades of gray. I don't know about you, but it makes life a lot easier to stomach when you keep this front of mind. Until next time, live well, my friends.